Entertainment. I'm your host, Lex, and I'm back here today with another stream. Now, past couple of days, interestingly enough, I haven't been feeling well, honestly. So I had to take off work and take off streaming essentially as well. So since I think Monday, is it Monday? Tuesday, Wednesday, yeah, since Monday basically, I haven't been able to do much work. So this is my first day back at work and first day back streaming as well. Now, typically on Thursdays, I like to do Theory Thursdays, but I'm still recovering from whatever it is I had going on. So because of that, my energy levels aren't quite how I like them to be. So rather than going and giving a talk for like 45 minutes here to an hour, I'm actually just going to go and stream and game, right? So one of the games I'm playing in particular here is Marvel Cosmic Invasion. Been having a ton of fun with the game. So what I'm going to do today is rather than give you guys a Theory Thursday for now, I will go ahead and play the game and give some commentary and feedback wherever that can come in. With that said, let me pick up my controller here and let's get going. So let's see. All right. Let's make sure we're connected. So let's do the screen share. Marvel Cosmic Invasion, beautiful. And I'm gonna double check YouTube, make sure the stream is actually live as well, because I've been hit too many times. And then my stream is lost and blah 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 blah. So let me just see here, make sure that my channel is actually showing up as me streaming. Ba, 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 ba. Yeah, looks like I'm live on YouTube. Perfect. With that said, let's get to gaming, folks. Let's. All right, so I am going to go ahead here with a campaign, or sorry, an arcade. Let's see if I can finish an arcade on my lunch break here. So let's see. Who shall I pick? Questions. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick Spider-Man.
Spider-Man does whatever a spider can.
We'll go black suit.
Spider-Man does whatever a spider
can.
can.
And then to combo with Spider-Man, I'm gonna go with Captain America because I like me some Captain America. Oh, come on! Don't do this to me now.
Captain America, ready for the fight.
Okay. So my stream is lagging a little bit here. Hopefully it doesn't mess up the gameplay.
Annihilus has emerged from the depths of the negative zone to claim the entire universe as his own.
Perfect cover for a bank job.
Hold on here. My sound seems to not be playing, so I just want to make sure something's not wrong with my settings here. Options. Yeah, 95%. Let me know if you guys can hear anything. Yeah, I usually play the game with the sound off. So now that I want to turn it on for the stream, can't seem to find it. Deal with it later. All right, let's go.
Don't need the old spider sense to figure out there's trouble downtown.
Watch out, these bugs have been sent by Annihilus himself.
When I first played this, I wasn't used to Spidey.
Slow down, pal!
Web swing. This move right here, which is like his premier move. Okay, wait. Did my controller just... Okay, hold on. Controller just died. Oh, that is fun. Continue anyway. Controller connecting. Wow. Wild.
Keep fighting.
This is wild. Okay. So I'm reconnected. Okay, I don't know what happened with my controller there, but I'm gonna plug it into charge just in case the battery is low. Alright. Oh, it happened again. Okay, there we go. Wow. That was crazy. Yeah.
Get over here!
What's happening?
Can't give up. Back
What's going on with my controller? This is so strange.
Must keep fighting.
This is so strange. Okay, that's the second disconnect in a row and third disconnect. Okay. What is going on? Controller connected. What's my battery at? This is wild. So Bluetooth. Controller's connected. It keeps dying. Oh. What is going on? Okay, yeah. We're gonna have to discontinue here, folks. We're gonna have to discontinue here. So let's stop sharing. Continue anyway. So upsetting. So upsetting. All right, so wow. That was priceless. So for whatever reason, I was charging my controller before I had to go live on stream. And for whatever reason, the controller wasn't charging properly. I go in, start to play, and as you guys saw, everything just died. Everything went dead, and the controller wouldn't continue. The controller is a charge and play, so I'm supposed to be able to charge and play it, and yet when charging, it wouldn't play. So for whatever reason, I won't be able to stream the game today. Now, what I'll do instead is there is a video I did want to react to by the name of, let me see here. The YouTuber is called Dom's Gaming Channel. So let me see here. Dom's, go to YouTube. Now, I'm not going to react to the entire video here because I do want you guys to go ahead and actually, check out the video yourselves. But I do think it's worth reacting to because it does relate to a lot of what I talk about here in terms of the idea that there's no such thing as entertainment, and that the things that you enjoy playing, watching, whatever it might be, are actually more, there's more substance to them than we actually think. So I'm going to hop into some of that here. So it's Dom's Gaming Channel. Okay. All right. So found the video here. Now, what I am going to do is share my screen. Okay, so you guys should see it here. Let me just make sure my audio is working. Yeah, okay, so share. All right, so this is from Dom's Gaming Channel. The video is called Why Gaming Isn't a Waste of Time. Speaking of which, here I was about to play a game, and unfortunately my controller is acting up, and because of that I can't stream the game with you guys. But I still wanted to talk a little bit about this because I do think it's important. This is, I think, very important, and we'll get into it in a moment here. So let's see what Dom has to say about why we feel like gaming is a waste of time. And this has a lot to do with what I like to talk about on this channel.
Let's be honest, most of us have had that moment where you're a few hours deep into a gaming session. Maybe you've just finished a big mission or wrapped up a boss fight, and suddenly it hits you. What am I doing? I could have been productive. I could have gone to the gym, could have learned something, I could have fixed something or built something. That sinking feeling, guilt. Like, gaming is this unproductive, passive escape.
Yeah, I want to speak to that guilt aspect as well, in terms of feeling as though you're wasting your time and wasting what you have in front of you, right? Uh, there's a lot to that, I think, that he'll speak to here. But one of the things I learned of a lot in life is to, I guess, understand guilt and prioritize it or put it in the right place. Oftentimes, you'll guilt yourself in ways that are unnecessary. And in turn, because of that excess guilt, you end up doing worse, if that makes sense. So it's like the guilt changes the way you see yourself. And because you're seeing yourself in that improper way, you start to do worse things. So this idea of seeing yourself as like a criminal, for example, right? Because you committed a crime, which technically you would be, right? But seeing yourself as a criminal, and then the next time the opportunity comes to commit a crime, you're more likely to commit it because you're viewing yourself in that lens. So in that same kind of way, guilt is a trap oftentimes that we don't really realize and see. It's a necessary thing. We do need to feel guilty for things at times, but there's a way to deal with guilt that isn't uh, let's say detrimental to oneself, that I think is important to think about as well. But this is completely off topic. I don't know why I'm ranting about this. Let's get back to Dom's video here.
And the thing is, that feeling doesn't just come from nowhere. It's built into our culture now, into our routines, and the way that we measure value in adulthood. So let's break down exactly where this guilt comes from, because if we understand it, we can start to dismantle it. The modern world runs on output. You're judged by your job title, how busy you are, how much you're grinding. Work culture, especially in the UK and the US, pushes this unspoken rule that downtime has to be earned. If you're not using your time wisely.
Yeah, that's very, very true. Very, very true. This aspect of productivity where it's like you just have to work, 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 and do as much as possible. I can't stress this enough. I've been out the past couple of days, in part because of this, right? This aspect of not taking the time to rest and not taking the time to take a break, essentially. Rest ultimately is oddly enough a form of productivity. The most recently, the movie Spider-Man: Brand New Day just came out, and I've been reviewing that on this channel a lot. And in that movie, an aspect of his life is involving this specific thing here, which is the aspect of making sure that he's always working, that he's always productive, that he's always doing well. And one of the things he realizes in the film, or at least the film showcases, is that even when resting, right, you can still be productive, in the sense that oftentimes when you take a break and you rest, there are insights that come during that break that otherwise do not or would not show up at all, right? In the movie, spoilers for Spider-Man: Brand New Day, for the few who haven't seen it yet, in that movie, what you end up having is a situation where Peter has to take a break. He doesn't take a break, he chooses not to. And then eventually, throughout the story, he listens to one of his friends who tell him to take a break. And as he's resting and taking a break with some of his friends, it's then he realizes a very pivotal plot point in the movie. And he only comes to that realization because he was resting, right? And that scene sort of showcases this interesting aspect of life, where when you're in the shower you get your best ideas, or when you're doing things that are not related to the thing you're supposed to do is when you're more productive and more effective, right? So there's this aspect of productivity that involves not producing, and that's a very important key part of productivity that we oftentimes neglect or don't realize is even a thing. And because of that, we are less productive, right? And I think that's a very important thing to pay attention to and to take note of, that we don't realize in our society too much, right? And I think this is speaking to that a little bit here, speaking to this sort of hustle culture that we have here out in the West.
You're wasting it. and gaming that gets lumped in with the mindless entertainment bracket. But here's the twist: you're not wasting time.
Oh man, there's something there you said that was key, and I'm pausing this video a bunch of times because again, you guys know the deal with YouTube. He said this part where it says it gets lumped in together with mindless entertainment, and that phrase of mindless entertainment is in large part why this channel even exists in the first place, because the idea of mindless entertainment to me, I think, is an oxymoron in the sense that entertainment itself is your mind engaged in the first place, right? That feeling of being entertained is that feeling is you being engaged, and engagement involves focus, and focus involves your mind. So you can't have mindless entertainment essentially because it wouldn't be entertaining. is essentially the idea. So to me, that phrase he used here when he's talking about mindless entertainment to me is important because I don't believe that is a thing. And when something is mindless, it's not entertaining. It's something that your mind does not want to pay attention to, that your mind does not want to focus on. And the thing about things that are entertaining, or what I like to say engaging, is that engaging things draw you in. You can have an engaging speaker, you can have an engaging show, you can have an engaging game. It's all about engagement rather than entertainment simply, right? So this idea of mindless entertainment to me is an oxymoron. It's like saying mindless engagement. In a sense, you can't, it's impossible. You have to use your mind in order to be engaged. Now I think what people might allude to is there are certain things that are set up in such a way that it's easy for your mind to engage in, and it's easy to focus in on, right? Because of how fluid, let's say, the gameplay might be, or how amazing the sound or special effects might be. Music is a great example of this thing where you could argue it's kind of mindless in a sense because it kind of just flows and is easily taken in by yourself, right? There's this saying where people say music doesn't need permission to get into your soul or something like that, right? Which is just this aspect of how music is so well crafted that it just seeps in without much effort. But it's not mindless by any means, and any musician will will tell you that and be upset if you say that music in and of itself is just a mindless thing. So back to what I'm talking about with this video here is I like the spirit of Dom's channel here. This is the only video I've watched from him, but I like what he's saying here in the sense that there's more to our entertainment than just simply the entertainment itself, which should be obvious. But again, for whatever reason, the culture that we're in values, I think, the wrong things. And because of that, we tend to misinterpret or improperly read the purpose of our media in general, right?
At all, you're recovering. Research from the Journal of Media Psychology and gaming that gets lumped in with the mindless entertainment bracket. But here's the twist: you're not wasting time at all. You're recovering. Research from the Journal of Media Psychology shows that.
I feel like I'm gonna be pausing every minute. Again, go watch the video yourselves if you want to see it in continuity. But specifically here, he says that you're not pausing, right? He says that you're recovering, and the recovery part is key. I was about to start this stream off gaming. The reason why I was going to start off gaming is because of the recovery aspect of it that he's going to allude to here. But recovery is incredibly important. We don't realize that it is, but it very much is. Anyone who is a personal trainer or a gym person, gym bro, gym sis, whatever you want to call it, right? They'll tell you that when you work out, you need to have recovery time. You can't just go lifting weights every single day, the same body parts, and expect those body parts to grow and develop over time. You need days in which you need to recover and rest from that. And the recovery part is key, very, very important. And in fact, most of your gains happen during recovery. I don't think that's a coincidence. I'll say it again. Most of your gains happen while in recovery, meaning that recovery is important and should be valued. And I think in the same way, this aspect of leisure, of recovery that involves quote unquote entertainment, I think it should be valued as well and paid attention to as a key aspect in our development in all aspects of our lives. I think it's crucial. And I think it's also obvious given how people tend to behave towards these different properties of entertainment and different media properties in general. Uh, it's like we know it innately, but it's not described in that kind of way.
Video games are one of the most effective forms of active recovery, especially for people who feel
Say that again, sir. Say that again, sir.
wasting time at all. You're recovering. Research from the Journal of Media Psychology shows that video games are one of the most effective forms of active recovery. Of media psychology shows that video games are one of the most effective forms of active recovery.
I love that. So it says here, video games are one of the most effective forms of active recovery. I think this is a very important point, one that we overlook and don't even fully realize. So one of the things I was telling my wife once is that I had noticed specifically when it came to gaming that whenever I would try to recover from things, whether it was through watching a TV show or, reading or whatever the case might be, right? Whenever I would turn to a form of leisure, oftentimes it wouldn't be as effective as just playing a game, even a game on my cell phone, right? It wasn't nearly as effective when it comes to that effect of feeling refreshed or recovered or just relaxing. It wasn't the same thing. And it's almost like intuitively I was able to pick up that for whatever reason, when I'm playing a game, it helps me to recover quicker than other activities. So for me, as much as I talk about movies as much as I do in this channel, and TV shows eventually as well, gaming to me is actually the apex of art, let's say, right? Because what you end up having with a game is you're combining all these different aspects of artistry, of craftsmanship. Almost every craft you can think of is involved when it comes to making a game. If you look at something like sculptors, right? Sculpting anatomy, those sculptors are involved in a different way when building 3D models inside of a game. They're sculpted within the game. But even before they're sculpted within the game, sometimes those models are sculpted with actual clay, let's say, right? To get a look and a feel for the thing. When it comes to acting, you have the voice actors who will come in and deliver voice work, but you'll also have motion capture work that's done with facial animation. There's so many different things involved in building a game surrounding all these different types of disciplines throughout I was about to say space and time, but seriously, almost everything you can see that was done at a technical standpoint, at an artistic standpoint, is implemented within a game. It's this interesting fusion of technology and art, and I like to say that technology is just another form of art, but nonetheless, gaming itself has this thing about it that is very, very unique in that it combines all these disciplines together. And what's interesting about that is that not only does it combine all those disciplines together, all those forms of media in one place, but as this study is showing here, it also is able to give you the best form of active recovery, which is very, very interesting. Hold on. Oh, thank you so much. This is hilarious. My wife just made me a sandwich, which is awesome. Okay, hold on. Let me move this over here. Thank you, babe. Okay, so I'll eat the sandwich after the stream. But nonetheless, there's this really interesting thing here that you get with gaming, in that there seems to be a correlation, seemingly, right, between the degree in which multiple people are involved in producing the piece of media, and its level of engagement that it gives the user, and then the level of engagement that is within that piece of media also coincides seemingly with the degree in which it gives you active recovery. Now, I'm not 100% sure on this because I haven't fully read through this entire study, and there's probably more studies necessary to sort of showcase this, right? But I do believe that something like a novel that's written by one writer, for example, right, and the engagement that comes from that and the active recovery that comes from that would be lesser than, say, a animated show that is also from that same author, let's say, but then you got animators in there as well and other people involved in producing the project, right? And then in turn, that animated project being turned into a video game, that is now another level where you're bringing in programmers and you're bringing in voice actors and all these different other groups of people to create that same piece of media, or I should say that same franchise, right? And as you move along in the different mediums, the more people involved, the more care put into it, the more engagement sort of flows out of it. And in terms, the more engaging it is, the better active recovery that you receive. That's something that I'm actually curious about. Hey, Dom, if you've done some research on this, please let me know. I'm curious as well. But I really think there may be something there in regards to this situation, right? I'm really, really curious about it. So yeah, I'm gonna reach out to Dom here, see what he has to say about this. But to me, I think that's a really cool aspect of what he's talking about here, specifically in regards to the level of active recovery that comes in from gaming, and I stress this a lot because I really do believe that in the theory of entertainment that I talk about, right? That once you have that increased level of engagement, you also simultaneously, for whatever reason, have more wisdom and more knowledge that stems from that same thing. It's a really interesting concept for whatever reason. So like the more engaging something is, the more you can learn from it. So to give my example of the book versus animated show versus video game, when you have the book, you're learning things from reading the book. So you're learning something like vocabulary, right? Sentence structure, all those types of things, right? You're also learning things from the story. You're learning plot threads, all those different aspects of things that help to train your mind to be effective in the real world, right? So those are all different things you're learning from the book. But then once you take that and you add visuals to it and you put it into an animation, let's say, right? In the animation, you're learning some of those same things, but there's different things that are being learned because there's that principle that we hear all the time that a picture is worth 1,000 words. So in that animation now, you don't just have one picture, but you have a series of pictures. In fact, I think it's something like 30 frames per second, so 30 different images per second being shown. So now you're seeing that the intensity of which you are learning is increased because you're taking in all those different frames and you're comparing the previous frames from the newer frames. And in doing so, you're taking in the motion and the visuals of things. So now the things that were being described in the book are more engaging, let's say in the animation, for example. And then also you're able to take in and pick up and learn more things because there's certain things that you can depict in a book, but there's certain things that can only be depicted visually when you're seeing it yourself. There's just certain things that are communicated only through visuals and through visual mediums, which is why something like film is so huge because it's a visual medium, right? And it's like it communicates what needs to be said so quickly. Like you can have an entire page describing something, but one single frame of an image will boom give you that same description almost instantly, right? So there's like this extra level of packed information found within the imagery. And then now you take that a step further and you put that into a video game. What you have there is you're still getting the imagery, right? That you get from the animation. But what's key here is now you're also getting this aspect of it that also includes the gameplay and it also includes the back and forth with the AIs that are within the game or with other players as well. So you also have this element of game theory that's thrown into there as well. And you have all of these things working together within the game. And all those things are, of course, engaging. But on top of that being engaging, it's teaching you something. There's so much you can learn from a game and gameplay that you cannot learn from a still image or moving images or from reading on a page. So there's this really interesting thing here that you get where as you increase in, I guess you could say, this hierarchy of media, right? You also increase in the amount of information you're able to derive from each forms of that media. A great example is if you look at the phrase pride becomes comes before the fall, right? You can write that in a book and it's there, which is nice. But then once you take that principle and you illustrate that into a TV show or movie where you actually see the characters become prideful, you actually see what leads into that pride, and then ultimately you see their downfall visually. That takes that and puts that into a different perspective. But then when you put that into a video game, what you get is even more interesting because you get the feeling of getting proud. So I'll give a great example where there's a card game I used to play. It's a digital card game called Legends of Runeterra, right? And in that game, you would have all these cards that you'd set up, and you'd basically be able to battle someone over the course of I don't know 5 6 minutes, whatever, however long the matches were. And there were times where oftentimes you would get the lead in the match. And there's a way you can play the match where you're securing the win, and there's a way you could play it where you're kind of just messing around with your opponent a little bit or just having fun with them because you're in the lead, right? And that latter form of play can sometimes be prideful in a sense, right? It could be this idea that I'm better than you, I'm gonna obviously win this, I have nothing to worry about, right? And in doing so, it's actually kind of fun to do that. At first it's like, oh wow, it's kind of fun playing out with this guy. But then once they're actually able to come back and beat you, there's this sting that you feel and you're like, oh man, I fell really hard. And you remember the feeling you had when you were ahead in the match and you're like, whoa, okay, so that's like a feeling of pride almost, right? And you start to realize, okay, if I am feeling this in my day-to-day real life, I need to pause for a second and humble myself, because if I don't, I'm going to fall in my real life the way I fell in that match, and you do not want to fall in real life the way that you fell in that match in the game, right? So that's a great example of a player versus player game that teaches you this principle of pride coming before the fall. And it's almost like a three-dimensional way of learning it because you're seeing it, but you're also acting it out and playing it, right? Versus just reading it off of a page or watching it. So like I said, there's this really interesting aspect of gaming in general, as well as all these other mediums where you're able to sink in and derive more information. And lastly, that I want to speak into the gaming part as well, because there's other games you can play, like tabletop games and board games and sports games, like actual like sports, not FIFA, but not well, FIFA, yes, but not like the FIFA game or the NBA 2K. I'm talking about actual go outside, play sports, touching grass. So these are all different aspects of games, right? And games are also a form of engagement, right? You learn a ton from those games. And what's interesting is, and what I love about gaming is that it's able to take aspects of games, right? Those learning aspects that exist within them. It's able to take aspects of literature. It's able to take aspects of film. It's able to take aspects of all these different mediums and truly bring them together in an untouchable medium, to be honest. And lastly, what I did want to talk about today, but I thought I wouldn't have the juice to be able to do so, uh, is I wanted to talk about this aspect of how money is directly associated with this aspect of wisdom, in the sense that where the more money you have in a particular industry, right, the more wisdom is required to operate within that industry. And I'm not going to touch too much on that now. We'll save that for another Theory Thursday. But particularly, the money part is key because the more wisdom you have in a field, the more you can learn from it. So, oftentimes, with something like gaming, it's one of the industries, if not the industry, that makes the most money, uh, period, right? But simultaneously, it's also the most complex industry to create it. But also, at the same time, it's also the industry that you can actually learn the most from, and have the most direct applicability from gaming into real life, based off of at least what I've studied so far. And there's an interesting correlation with all that, and it speaks to, again, this one segment of the video where the homie Dom here is essentially saying that gaming is one of the most refreshing forms of media in general. So, with that said, that was quite the rant here. But like you can tell, I'm really passionate about this. I think there's something there in what Dom is saying and in what I'm saying in regards to this aspect of entertainment, and how it's not just merely mindless entertainment, as Dom said here.
Especially for people who feel drained or overworked. In fact, games do a better job at recharging, especially media psychology shows that video games are one of the most effective forms of active recovery, especially for people who feel drained or overworked. In fact, games do a better job at recharging mental energy than passive activities like watching TV or just scrolling through your phone. Why? Because they demand focus, they offer immediate rewards, they create a sense of control, all of which are linked to lower stress and improved mental resilience.
Yeah, that was a great segment and a great point that he mentioned there, requiring focus, right? Back what I said, this aspect of focus, engagement. When you're playing a game, you enter this realm of, how do you say, like you enter a zone almost in certain sense, right? A flow state. And I think it can't be discounted enough, the importance of that flow state, and how it trains you to be able to do certain things. Hold on. You want the plate? Okay. Thanks. Okay, so speaking of flow states, there's this aspect of gaming that puts you into a flow state. You're kind of in a zone, and you're really focused. And when you're playing a game, it's almost like it's training you to get into flow states. Thank you. In ways in which other things do not. And I think it's important because I heard a programmer once say that one of the keys to programming, it was an odd statement, but he said, is being able to sit down in a chair for a long time in front of a computer and just work, is essentially what he said, as a, one of the key aspects to becoming a good programmer. And the irony of that, or I think I guess there's some irony to it because programmers make games, is that one of the key aspects of gaming is sitting down in front of a computer or a screen for a long period of time in a focused state. So it's like, as you're gaming, you're almost training that muscle in a way to be able to be focused on a screen for a long period of time, specifically to do some sort of work, right? Which is helpful for anyone who does digital work at home, in any capacity, right? But anyways, let's get back to this video here. And again, I'm not going to be watching the entire video because I do want you guys to go check out Dom's channel and to watch it. And if Dom, you're watching, hey, what's up? But specifically here, I wanted to touch on some of the aspects of this video that I found interesting because, again, I haven't seen anyone else talk about this, at least the way Dom is here. And some of what he's drawing out here is stuff that I figured was probably a reality from this theory. However, him showcasing this and bringing out some science that actually is proving that theory to an extent here is very, very interesting. And I'm also interested as well in any other studies that can be found speaking to this area as well.
Think about it. If you finish work, your brain's been on edge all day with deadlines, decisions, distractions. You need something that lets you engage without that pressure, something that gives you structure without stress. And games fill that gap better than almost anything else. Gaming is not just a way to pass time. It's a way to recover. If you're overworked, stressed, or mentally drained, gaming is a deliberate, healthy choice to reset your mind.
Okay. So yeah, he's speaking to this aspect of how it's a great way to refresh and the importance of it for that refreshing. I think he's correct. I definitely do. And I find that when I'm gaming, let's say, I tend to do other activities like, say, scrolling social media or those types of things less, right? And there's sort of like less of a need for it, if that makes sense. Excuse me. So even something like YouTube, I'll be on YouTube less as well if there's a game that I'm currently playing, right? And that's interesting because it basically it moves your recovery time to this section of the day where you're gaming. And then throughout the rest of your day and the rest of your week, it's like you're doing less of that. So in a way, it's more productive because if you need, I don't know, let's say 10 hours worth of rest to recover, and that 10 hours, you could spend it, let's say, watching 5 movies, right? And that will give you that recovery. But because gaming is, let's say, a stronger form of recovery, instead of spending that 10 hours, you might be able to spend 3 to 4 hours gaming and get the same amount of recovery, right? Same can be said for other forms of media as well. But I think what he's saying here is very interesting in that, yeah, I think there's something there when it comes to helping with that recovery. But let me continue in with this video here. I'm gonna stop it around the midway point for you guys to check out the rest. But so far, as you can see, we're only a couple minutes in here, 2 minutes, and yeah, there's a lot to say from what Dom is talking about here.
Even though the gaming industry makes more than music and movies combined, there's still this cultural undertone that games are for kids. When people talk about gaming, it's often in the same breath as cartoons or toys, or just simply wasting your youth. That stigma sticks, even if you're 30 and gaming is your main form of entertainment.
Yeah, so I do want to speak to that. Here I go again, right? But I do want to speak to what you just said there in this aspect of how people will view gaming as something that's juvenile, for children. That's unhealthy, let's say, right? There's this thing I always like to bring up when I'm talking about the theory, where lions in specific, right? Lions will grow up playing in the grass, right? And as they're playing, they're sort of pouncing on each other, playing all the time. But what they're doing when they're playing is they're actually training themselves to hunt and training themselves to be lions, right? To hunt for food. So their play is directly related to their livelihood. Their play is directly related to their development in life. Their play is directly related to whether or not they will be able to eat in the future. And those that play the most, I guess, get used to their body, and in turn are able to go out there and pounce on prey and do all types of other things. And I don't think that this aspect of play in lions is exclusive to lions, but I also do not think that it's exclusive to the animal kingdom. I do think that there's an aspect of us as humans where our play itself is key to our development and growth and success in our future, in our day-to-day lives. I genuinely believe that's a thing that is real and it's tangible. And I think he's going to speak to some of that here. And it should be taken seriously. I really do. As you guys know, I have 3 active daughters right now, and the top two of those daughters, the 2 oldest ones, when they're playing different things, right? It's really funny because you'll come over and be like, "Oh, what are you doing? Are you playing this or that?" And they'll look at you like, "We're not playing." They'll say something like, "We're not playing, we're cooking," right? And it's like, to us as adults, we're looking at it as play, but to them, they're taking it seriously. They're saying, "No, this is serious. We're cooking food. We're preparing our food. We're getting things ready for our families," as an example, right? It's just something that they're doing. To them, it's engaging. To them, it's fun, right? But also simultaneously, it's preparing them for whatever reason, for what they have ahead in their life at some point, right? And it's like they can sort of, in a weird way, sense that, I don't know. And for them, they really, really, really take it seriously. Like if you try to tell them they're playing, they won't believe you. So this aspect of how he's talking about toys earlier and dolls, there's toys and dolls, they're not just used for play. It's like the child is learning and experimenting and creating worlds to sort of frame their own world in, right? And there's things that they're learning from play, from using different means of play, that is helpful and beneficial to them. In fact, I think if children were not allowed to play, that it would stunt their development essentially in a huge way. I really do believe that. So this aspect of us needing play to develop ourselves, it's obvious, right? But what's interesting is we have this sense of belief that for whatever reason, as you grow up and become an adult, that you no longer need that play anymore, which is weird. It doesn't make sense, because if you look at it, right, when you're young, you need sunlight, you need water, you need food, and you need play. You need connection with people. You need all of that stuff. Now, why is it that as you become an adult, everything else that's there is still necessary, but the play is taken out? That doesn't make sense. It shouldn't make sense. And I believe that we need to take that back and realize that, hey, you need to not only have play or a form of play or leisure in your life, but you need to be able to embrace it and also note to that there's something more to just the fun of it. That there's something you can genuinely take back with you to your day to day, to your workplace, to your home, whatever it might be. That there's something that is coming from that play that you're experiencing that you can really use in your daily life. So, with that said, let's get back to Dom's video here.
Let's look at the facts. The average gamer is 32 years old. Over 70% of gamers are over 18. Nearly half of gamers are working professionals, and many of them play games to cope with stress, improve focus, or stay connected socially.
And this is what I'm talking about. It's not just for children, and I think that there's something there, right? There's definitely something there. And hey, gaming's not for everyone, but what I will say is that leisure is for everyone. Everyone has a form of leisure to them that helps them to recover and helps them to feel better or whatever the case might be, right? But the key is that when you're in that leisure, note that there's something about it that's more than just the leisure itself, that you're still recovering and growing and picking up information.
Gaming hasn't stayed in the teenage bedroom, it's matured with us. We're now playing narrative epics with 100-hour runtimes, games that explore trauma, grief, politics, philosophy, games that require decision-making, logic, skill, planning. Nobody looks at a 30-year-old who reads sci-fi books or watches 3-hour films and says, isn't that a bit childish? Yet somehow, gaming still does get that label. That guilt that you feel, a lot of it is cultural baggage, but the stats show that gaming is not just for kids. It's the dominant art form of our generation, and you're not alone in enjoying it.
I like what he said there, the dominant art form of our generation. I really do like what he said there. There is something about gaming that is special, that I feel is, yeah, it's underrated, and I understand it in the sense that if you haven't picked up a controller yourself and had those experiences of playthroughs and beating a game and all those different things, if it's something you haven't done yourself, I can see why you'd have an aversion to it, or you would look down upon it, or you wouldn't appreciate it for whatever reason, right? Because it's an odd experience if you look at it from the outside looking in, but from someone who has the experience of gaming and playing different games, it's something that's very special. And I appreciate what Dom is talking about here in expressing a lot of this.
Here's the thing. We're taught to measure value by output. What did you produce? What did you earn? What did you achieve? But gaming is rarely visible. You can't show it off in the way that you can show a gym body off or a home project. So it's easy to look at your gaming hours and feel like they've amounted to nothing. But that's a complete lie, because games don't give you external value. They give you internal value. They give you focus, challenge, mental stimulation, structure and flow, a sense of mastery, and most importantly, they give you joy. Psychologists.
Okay, so yeah, that's. I want to speak to what he's saying there, and with what he's saying, I'm gonna end the video sort of here. Again, like I said, you guys should check out this channel, Dom's Gaming channel. In here, he has some really cool stuff. I'm probably gonna do some more videos on some of his vids later on, just in the future. But I do want to talk specifically on this last point that he made here, in regards to how gaming specifically it builds you up internally, right? It's sort of like this internal growth that happens that you don't see necessarily in other places. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen here because, excuse me, I think this is a very important point. All right, so this aspect of how gaming will internally build you up is, I think, very, very key, because there are things about us that are very important that we need to develop in order to be successful in life. So a good example of that is something like confidence, right? Confidence is very, very important and very key in all aspects of life. There's so many times where you will not do something simply because you lack the confidence to do it. Not the ability, not the skill, but the confidence to actually do the thing. And that's very, very important, because there's so many times in which I've been held back simply because the confidence wasn't there, but the skill was there, the ability was there. Everyone else could see it but myself. And confidence comes from being able to actually accomplish something, right? And this is going to sound super strange, very, very weird, but back to that same card game I was talking about, right? Earlier, Legends of Runeterra. There's a ranked system within the game, and within that ranked system, what you end up having is you eventually reach the top tier, which is the highest rank within the game. And this takes Lord knows how many hours. It's very, very difficult. You have to understand the game very, very well. You have to understand the game very, very deeply. You need to reach a level of mastery where you can actually get to the highest level of play within that game. And I remember that I forget how long it had taken me, but after a while, I didn't actually think that I'd be able to reach that level. And then eventually I was able to reach it. And I was able to be sort of in the top tiers of the game. And what this opened up for me in my mind is it made me realize that if I could do that within this game, then there's likely other areas of my life that I can do this in as well. And that it's not just a matter of, you know, specific people being able to do certain things that you're not able to do, but instead that there's, you know, it gave me this sense of confidence, like there's very little in which I cannot do. And the reason why is because when you're playing a player versus player game, PvP game, there's this aspect of it where you, you first enter the game and you play against people and you're just getting destroyed, absolutely slaughtered. Like everyone's just beating you one after the other, after the other, after the other. It's just crushing defeat after crushing defeat after crushing defeat after crushing defeat. And it seems like you're not going to make it at all. But then what's interesting is if you keep at it, if you continue to learn and to practice, if you go seek out extra wisdom from other players and figure out how it is you can incorporate that into your own game, this interesting thing happens where you start to get good at the game. You start to understand the principles of the game. And from that understanding, you're then able to climb that ladder and you start to win rather than lose. And you see that difference. And it's those types of activities that build confidence in a person and confidence in a user. And I'll use that as an example here because right now I'm starting off this YouTube channel, for example, right? And it's super early in terms of what I'm doing, figuring things out, all that kind of stuff, right? But the principles being used to build up the channel are principles that have already been practiced in reaching higher ranked tiers in certain games. A great example is when playing a fighting game, you start off playing that game getting your butt whooped. You keep losing, right? And in a sense, in a YouTube version of that, that's happening here on the channel, where I'll release some videos, I'll release some streams, whatever the case might be. And when looking at the numbers, it's like my butt's getting whooped, right? That being beat. But one of the key aspects of developing in the fighting game involve, for example, learning different moves and watching others and how they do things. And in the same way, one of the key aspects of myself developing as a YouTuber, as a streamer, is being able to learn from others and study others and implement those things into my stream as well. So the same principles that I've been able to pick up and learn from those games are the same principles that give me the confidence now to sit before you here today and stream this video before anyone's even watching, because I know that the confidence that I gained from that game can be brought over into this world as well, the streaming world that is, and to get going and see what can be done, right? And that goes case in point with YouTube, whatever the case might be, right? There's this aspect of gaming that builds up that internal confidence that I'm talking about, and confidence is incredibly important and incredibly key, especially for young men. And what's interesting is gaming in particular tends to draw in young men as well. So that is a key aspect of gaming that I think is very, very important and that's overlooked often, right? And the other aspect of it as well is that internal work that's done and that building of one's character, right? Character is very, very important to build up and to strengthen. It's, I would argue, one of the most important things that you can do is to build your character and to build it up. And what's interesting is that you don't look at something like video games as a character building activity. Most people do not. But the reality of it is that it is, because of how certain games are developed and built. There's a lot of different elements of your character that can be built up just from gaming, and all that happens or tends to happen all of the time. And I bring all of that up to say that what Dom's mentioning here, I think, is very important and key for us in our lives, in this aspect of being able to develop ourselves through gaming. And yeah, like that's what I want to touch on here specifically with Dom's gaming channel. And with what he has here on this video. Again, the video was called Why Gaming Isn't a Waste of Time. And hopefully, this talk here for you guys was not a waste of time, even though the beginning of the stream seems like it may have been, with all the stuff that wasn't working. Yeah, with that said, I'm going to clip this stream up as well, so that you guys can, take it in bite-sized chunks. I don't know how I'm going to clip up these large rants that I've had on gaming here, but I'll figure it out and get something out there. Nonetheless, this has been a blast. It's been really fun doing this stream here. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and yeah, hope everyone was able to get something out of it. With that said, I will be doing another stream tomorrow, Friday, and then I'll be off for the weekend and back on Monday. Now, what I do want to say as well is tomorrow I do have a meeting, a client meeting around noon ish, right? So because of that meeting, I will not be able to stream at that time, obvious reasons. So I will be aiming to stream later on in the day, closer to maybe 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, in that range. And yeah, I'll be streaming then. So with that said, thank you guys for taking the time to join my stream today. Look forward to doing some more streaming later on. This has been Theory of Entertainment. I'm your man Lex, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.